Hello, and welcome to the Artist Pivot Podcast. I'm your host, Ayana Major Bay, and before we get to this week's guests, I want to say a couple things. First, this episode is the finale of Season 6. Yes, y'all, it's a wrap on Season 6, and what a joy it has been. This season, the podcast reached the milestone of 100 episodes and received its first award. I am over the moon to announce that the podcast has been awarded the Bronze and Listener's Choice 2024 Signal Award in the Arts and Designers Shaping Culture category. I want to thank my guests for gracing my show with their presence, my listeners out there who these conversations resonate with, my tribe for helping me not give up, my amazing editor Kieran Niemans, and my podcast network family at Atabay & Co., formerly Boundless Audio Network. Thank you all so much. Cheers to more seasons and more awards. Now, on today's show, y'all are in for a real treat because you have two Jersey girls with Caribbean mothers and theater backgrounds on the microphone. It was such a pleasure to sit down with none other than actorprenuer Lori Tishfield, who now resides in Toronto. We discuss how important it is to maintain a sense of self beyond your professional identity and sitting in a place of balance between internal validation and the need for external affirmation from the industry. We touch upon overcoming self-doubt and societal conditioning so we can own our confidence and move through our career, business, and life with agency. Reminiscing on how the regalness of the Black actresses we grew up on and their mere presence was empowering and unapologetic, teaching us we are expensive. Our thoughts, feelings, and contributions to this world, especially as Black women, are expensive, and we should act accordingly. We dissect how rejection is protection, the need to sometimes pull the receipts from past experiences to remember that things have worked out before, and not forcing doors shut before their time. This episode boils down to trusting your intuition as your compass, understanding that your path is uniquely yours, and pivoting with grace so you can see where the journey takes you. Let's dive in. Your inner artist play, creating your dreams step by step every day. If you're feeling lost and don't know what to do, always remember that you can pivot to the artist pivot. The artist pivot. Hello, and welcome to the Artist Pivot Podcast. I am your host, Ayana Major Bay, a multi-hyphenated artist, and I am glad you are here. A couple housekeeping things before we get into the conversation. First, to keep up to date on all the things happening with the podcast, subscribe to the monthly newsletter at ayanabay.com/podcast. Second, to show your support for the show, you can get podcast merchandise at ayanabay.com/merch. And third, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and share this with at least one person. Enjoy the episode. We Audition is the video chat community where actors can audition, self-tape, rehearse, and get expert industry advice. Get instant self-tape readers through video chat, browse through the dedicated actor meditations, podcasts, and books, meet casting directors in the virtual green rooms, and also make money by becoming a reader for other actors. If you join We Audition and use code PIVOT, you will receive a 25% discount on your membership. Link in the show notes. All right, y'all. Today on the podcast, I am so excited to say that joining me is Lori Tishfield. If you can't see us, we're both dancing right now. Hello there, Lori. How you doing?
Oh, Ayana, that's so Jersey. How you doing?
How you? Okay, Jersey girls in the building.
It's getting dangerous.
It's getting dangerous. Y'all do not hold us liable for what we're about to say. We got two Jersey girls on the mic.
Oh, dangerous. No, I'm cool. I am podcasting from Toronto. I'm living a full Canada life.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm doing well. I am juggling a lot of things right
Yeah,
now, but my soul is well, right?
yeah,
Soul is well. My brain is a little manic, but I'm good. I'm
yes,
good.
yeah, same.
Yeah. Yeah, good, good. So I'm going to start with my two favorite questions. And
Ooh.
so my first one to you is, how are your hydration levels? Like, have you had enough water today?
Funny you say that. I have joined the cult that is the Stanley Colts. These
Yes.
little, I don't know how these cups become trending, but I went through one today, so I'm one
Hmm.
out of three. So my
Okay.
hydration is abnormally great, but I
Okay.
did have leftover Haitian food for lunch, which is
Yeah.
sodium central. So
Mhm.
we're there's an internal war.
Yes. Uh-huh. I understand that.
But
I
you've got to
understand
grow.
that feeling.
Like you've been hydrating,
Yes.
you've got to grow.
Right.
Oh, and we got a doggy over
And
here.
we do have a dog. Hey.
Come here, mama. Anyway,
What's her name?
this is Bill Bow.
Hello.
And every time I zoom, it's or anything, it's like a time bomb where I'm
Mhm.
just like,
Mhm.
what's she gonna notice? But
Right.
hopefully she'll be
Right.
pretty quiet.
Yeah. No
But
problem.
anyway,
You're
second
welcome.
question.
Yes. So the second question to you is, if I text you and say, Lori, how are you doing? How's your day going? How you feeling? But you could only respond in emojis only. What would you text me?
It would be like the swirly eyes,
Mhm.
a laughing face,
Mhm.
a black and white like shoulder shrug,
Mhm. Mhm.
a heart, and then like hearts all around. Um, and then like a black and white thankful. Thanks.
Mhm. Yes. Ooh, I love it. Thank you for that imaginary text. I appreciate
That was a good question.
it. Thanks. I appreciate it. So y'all, I am excited to have this conversation with Lori about pivoting in all aspects of artistic career, life, because life be lifing when you're
Mhm.
trying to pursue an artistic career. And sometimes you even have to be like, am I taking a break from my artistic career?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to dive into today. So I want to ask you, what was the first time in your like artistic journey where you
Yeah.
had to be like, I think I have to make a change. I think
Mm.
something has to be different.
So I would say I would think in college, and I think this is
Mhm.
like the journey of like any person of color in musical theater,
Mhm.
where you're like, great, I'm entering this, and these are the things that I'm purely and authentically into. Like my journey was very classical.
Mhm.
I was like competitive opera singer, high
Mhm.
school girl, like top tiers for all the choir competitions, la la la. Then I
Mhm.
got to conservatory and they're like, great, the musical theater canon, like, can you belt? Can you riff?
Mhm.
And that was my first time where I was like, okay, if if musical theater roles are XYZ for the person that the industry sees me as, I need to figure out how to pivot
Mhm.
and learn maybe vocal stylings that may not be my strong suit in
Mhm.
order to like survive.
So yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to try
Yeah.
to navigate. Oh, okay, well, like you said, this is not my strong suit, but let me try to, finesse, learn and finesse and see if I could
Hmm.
somewhat do another, style if that's so.
Yeah.
And so then with that, once you did graduate college, were you just strictly like musical theater is my game, like the name of my game, and that's it?
Yeah. I think when I graduated, it was the name of my game.
Okay.
I felt like that was most of the projects that I sought out for, but also like what my
Mm.
agents did see me for too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But go figure, like while I was in college, I felt like I loved acting way more than musical
Mm.
theater. So I would
Mm.
do a lot of like great straight plays in the city of Boston, and I loved my acting classes. And I
Mhm.
left feeling more jazzed by that than singing, which was always an interesting journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely, definitely. Love that. So once you started working professionally, what was, I guess, the trajectory you had in mind, and then what actually happened, right?
These are
Because
great questions. These are so great. So my trajectory, I wanted to be the next Audra McDonald. I was like,
Mhm.
great. So
Yes.
like obsessed with her. So when I
Mhm,
was in my
mhm.
teens, I was like, great, I'm going to study classical. Great. Then I'm going to go to a great conservatory.
Mhm,
I think when she was in college, musical theater degrees didn't exist. I was like, great,
mhm.
I'm going to leverage this and go into musical theater. And I
Yeah.
did all the right things. And then I got out of college and I realized like how many what they call legit musical theater, how many legit musical theater shows are actually out right now. I think it was the
Mhm.
time of like Porgy and Bess.
Yeah,
So I remember
uh-huh.
like going out for that. And then like I felt like me as a biracial person, I was very, very light.
Mhm.
And so it was navigating that
Y
of like the
yeah.
colorism of Broadway and how I was seen, but also the world.
Mhm.
Um and and then I felt like, okay, great, like I'll do the whole belt stylistic thing and I can go to like the final callbacks for Dreamgirls.
Mhm.
But the reality is like if it's me up against like women who like grew up in the church, like I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna book this.
Yeah, yeah.
So um so that's I think that's what actually happened. Is I mean, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go in this journey?
Listen, we could go. This is my podcast. We could do whatever we want.
Yeah. So
Let's go.
so yeah, my dream was Audra McDonald. I want to
Mhm,
win Tonys and just keep winning
mhm.
Tonys and make Broadway my entire life.
Wow, you sound like me.
Um,
Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
mean, it's a Jersey
This is
journey
this
though.
it is,
It's,
right?
listen, we grew up with the ads. We grew up with the Broadway show ads. Everyone knew what Broadway was.
Right.
And then I went to conservatory and they were like, great, boom, 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 success is Broadway. So that was
Mhm,
the only definition of success in my brain.
mhm,
But the reality of what happened is like, I was auditioning and then kind of navigating a lot of like weird experiences as an actor of like, we love you, but we already have someone your color in the cast. So we're just gonna,
mm,
or we love you, but like, or like sometimes like I'll get called in for sides that I just felt were like really demeaning and
mhm,
really hit my integrity.
mhm.
So that was like really, it was just a mixed bag, Ayana. You know how it
Yeah.
is as a Black woman in this industry. You're just like,
Yes. What?
what's happening? And so fast forward, as one does, we have all of our side jobs to literally survive.
Yes.
And so my first side job is I was like a party coordinator for
Mhm.
like a kid's birthday party company.
Okay.
It was out in Westchester, so I was commuting from Jersey to Westchester because
Woof.
yep. And then I did so well that they transferred me to their Upper East Side offices. And so I was like doing like Lion King parties, Wicked parties, Annie parties.
Mhm,
These were like kids' birthday parties that were
mhm.
Broadway themed. And we would have like the
Okay.
Nederlanders kids. We would have Drew Barrymore's kids, like Jimmy Fallon's kids. Like it was like elite.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I was in my early 20s and my boss at the time was like, don't tell anyone your age. Like you are young, but
Hmm.
like you do carry yourself with like authority. Like you can
Mm.
manage this. I was like, okay. And so I'm like pitching these and selling these parties to people. I'm locking in contracts. I'm
Mhm.
staffing it with actors to work these parties. I
Mhm.
am, actually doing the coordination of like balloon colors and cake vendors and this. So it was like, it was event production without me knowing that it was event production.
Mm.
And so I learned a lot in that regard. Meanwhile, simultaneously auditioning and felt like, the company promised me like, oh, you'll have the flexibility to audition. It didn't
Yeah.
happen. So I was like,
Mm.
great. So I took the leap of that. I remember one year, like a Wizard of Oz party, I turned to the lion. I was like holding a
Mhm.
cake and I was like, I'm not going to be here a year from now. And so I took the leap out
Yeah.
and I, went on Craigslist as one did, and I found like a brand ambassador job at the fancy food show at the Javits Center. And I was
Mhm.
like a Siggy's yogurt, like Siggy's yogurt. You see it like
Yeah.
ShopRite and Whole Foods and whatever.
Mhm.
So I was their brand ambassador, and I was just like for hours at a time, just pitching the product, talking about the
Mhm.
benefits, telling them how much protein, the quality of dairy, la, la,
Mhm.
la. And I was like oddly good at it. It was a lot of transferable skills for actors. We're really good at it because you're applying a lot of
Mhm.
your audition skills, but
Yeah.
just applying it to a product that's not yourself. So you're like, this is a breeze.
Right.
And I don't have to sing today. Great. This is a breeze.
Mhm.
So fast forward, that spiraled into me bumping out of that food show to represent another yogurt brand for Whole Foods
Mhm.
demos in New York. New York
Mhm.
in-store samplings and demos are very, very competitive and important for the growth of any brand because New York and LA, that's the birth of brands that trickles out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, long story short, I am an official Whole Foods demo girl in New York City, doing a ton, doing 2 a day, 3 a day, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had other brands coming to me and they're like, you're really good at this. Can you do my brand? And I just had this like moment where I was like, my friend, you're a vegan, your brand's vegan. My friend just got off a national tour. She's vegan. Let me connect you to. And then like my staffing and event production brain started to kind of kick in. And I was like, oh, this could be like a business that I can make money residually while still auditioning. Cause like as an
Mhm.
actor, you're always just trying to like figure out the Rubik's Cube that's New York
Yep.
of like, how do I
Yes.
make this work for me? How do I
Yes.
free up my time so that I can actually do the things that I want to do?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, long story short, 9 years later, I run a national staffing agency called Natural Talent.
Yes.
Yes, and
Congratulations.
thank you. It's a lot. Like I
Mhm.
know we were talking about before. It's just that like you're like this is not my plan
Mhm.
in life.
Mhm.
But here we are. So what do we do with that?
Yeah. Right.
So instead of a Tony Award winner, I am, you know, running a national staffing agency and I
Mhm.
get to perform when I want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But even with that, that doesn't mean you won't be a Tony Award winner. Like,
That's true. And that's what's so wild about this industry is like the
mm,
accessibility
mhm.
of Broadway.
Mhm.
It's way more accessible than we think.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until so in the middle of the pandemic, everything shut down, my business slowed down. My business was
Mhm.
going really well. Everything shut down. And what I will say is because of like the constant conditioning of Broadway success, even though I was running like a full on staffing agency that was growing rapidly
Mhm.
and was my primary means of income, it was great.
Mhm.
I still felt so unsuccessful because I was like, I've never booked a Broadway show before.
Mhm. Mhm.
So when
Mhm.
Broadway shut down, for the first time in my life, I was like, who am I when that thing that determines my success does not exist?
Mhm.
And it was the first time I was like, I'm a giving person. I'm a good person. These are my values.
Mhm.
Um, and what do I want for the industry?
Mhm.
What have I
Mhm.
learned? Because I was so convinced in starting my own company that it would bring me in full circle that I
Yeah.
could come back to theater and kind of face a lot of the things that I think were, I don't like to throw out the word traumatizing, but I'll say they were disappointing.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
were disappointing. The things that I've faced as an actor of color and just witnessing all the weird microaggressions and power roles and all these power dynamics and la la la. I'm like, I want
Mhm.
to come back to this and figure just understand the wizard, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so what I did was I called some of like my dearest mentors.
Yeah.
I think I might have done like a Facebook post or something like that. Just being like, I want to understand like what is the most powerful position in commercial theater that
Mhm.
can allow for change.
Mhm.
Because if it means that I sacrifice my acting career to apply what I've learned as an entrepreneur to be in a position of power to create lasting change, I'm
Mhm.
very okay with making that sacrifice. And so
Mhm.
I would hop on calls with different casting directors and other producers and la la la. And they're like, you
Yeah.
need to be a producer. So I started to just take up meetings with random producers that they would connect me with on Zoom in the middle of
Mhm.
quarantine. Just be like, what do you do? What is a producer? La, la, la. I
Yeah.
took some classes. I started, I applied for like producing fellowships,
Mhm, mhm.
and go figure, I got accepted to, so I got to like final interviews for Disney on Broadway's producing fellowship.
Yeah.
Didn't get that, but they kind of kicked me off to another fellowship in the building, which was their sales, marketing, publicity,
Mhm,
because they figured they're like, you've been working in like the experiential marketing realm and running your own
mhm,
company. Those
mhm.
are more skills that would be appropriate for that. So I was like,
Right.
great. So I just hopped into corporate, and I got to kind of see the back end of Disney on Broadway, which, let's be
Yeah.
real, this is like Mount Olympus of commercial theater. Like
Yeah.
we know this.
Yes. Yes. Mhm, mhm,
And so that was a year working corporate. I learned a lot.
mhm.
Um, and I mean, like, I feel like I've gone so far down the rabbit hole, Ayana. If there's any
Yeah, no,
questions that come up, please let me know.
you're good.
But
I go finish your thought. I was gonna put a pin in something, but you can finish your thought.
yeah, I mean, long story short is that like I just kind of wanted to do a lot of digging and discovery
Mhm,
to understand why. Um,
mhm.
and it's the Wild West, Ayana. It's the Wild West, and so it's just a matter of understanding, like, okay, if this is the way things are,
Mhm,
who am I in the midst of this?
mhm,
What are my
mhm,
values? Like,
mhm.
I'm more interested in like who you are, Ayana, and who I am, Lori. I almost called myself Ayana. Like, who are we at the
Mhm,
end of the day? Like,
mhm.
authentically from the way we have entered this world to who
Oh,
we are
yes.
today. Like, what is
Yeah.
going to make us glow the glowiest that we can? What is going to make us
Mhm,
smile the brightest? What is going to
mhm,
make us feel the fullest? And like,
mhm.
I'm sorry, but like, if there is something within our medium that is not making us feel like our fullest selves, it is our responsibility to pivot.
Yeah.
Point blank.
Oh, it is. It is 100%. And I'm gonna try to be concise. There's
Yeah.
so many lanes I wanna take with this, but the first thing that you mentioned about who am I in the pandemic, like, I could not tell you how many conversations I had with fellow colleagues, friends, artists who were like, "Who am I?"
Hmm.
'Cause we realized at that point that our identities were so wrapped into Broadway and
Yeah.
into theater and into this entity, if you will, that it was like, when it was stripped away, "Whoa, who am I?" Like,
Yeah.
as a person. And so right, as I'm like, I'm not just an actress who does musicals. Like, I'm not just like, no, you're a whole person, right? And
Yeah.
to like get into that discovery. And like you said, what makes us whole? What makes us smile? What makes us fulfilled? What makes us who we are, and that the theater is a part of it, right? Like, this is, oh,
Yeah.
we really like this and we're skilled at it, but that's not who we are. And so
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, not just you, that was a forced pivot. Like, I'll say
Yeah.
I'm definitely a part of that. It was a forced pivot of like, what? Wait a minute. What is going on? But again, to be sold that dream that Broadway was success. And if you weren't there, you're not successful, which is a
Yeah.
load of crap.
It
Like,
is. It is. And I think like the full journey of Broadway is understanding what it is. I think
mhm,
the biggest things that were the most eye opening were, I was in interviews. I interviewed with a lot of different producing offices for
mhm,
the Black Theater Coalition Fellowship.
mhm,
And I remember I sat with Nina Essman of with 321 Management. So
mhm.
she's with like Wicked. She's with like Heavy
Yeah.
Houses,
Okay.
GM, like my biggest thing is like, folks, like, I know actors, there's a huge divide between actors and GMs and all that stuff. It's like, just ask
Mhm.
questions.
Right.
They're all really cool people. Just ask them questions. And
Yeah.
I remember talking to her about Broadway, and she was just like, Lori, I'm gonna be real honest. Like, if you look out that window and you see all those shows, every Broadway show is a small business just doing their best.
Mm. Mm.
And then you just slap Broadway on it just for like
Yeah.
the luster and the allure. but
Yeah.
each one is a small business doing their best. And that was like, you know, just pull back that Jersey girl curtain
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, oh, got it. It's a
Yeah.
really hard ecosystem. Like you see
Yeah.
how like, you know, the theater from the theater owners to unions
Mm-hmm.
to, paying people a certain amount
Mm-hmm.
to keeping the lights on, how to keep the seats filled, publicity, marketing. Like it is so costly. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
a miracle that this is still kind of going. And so when people are like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, we have to do star casting and all this stuff," it's like, no, they literally have to. Like
To
we
keep
have
the
to.
lights on, they're like, yep, we have to do it. And yes, that
Yeah.
comes with that like back and forth, but we got to keep the lights on if y'all want us to have a theater next year to do another show.
Yeah. And we can't be that surprised because it's just like I always tell people,
Mm-hmm.
just like zoom out. Like it's in a very like capitalistic country that we're in. And
Yes, it
commercial
is.
theater is completely like it is like the most like Broadway, I will say, is like the most like capitalist version of theater that you can ever find
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. And
Yep.
so we can't be that surprised when things are just like determined for the sake of money. It
Yeah.
has to be. And then another thing that was really eye opening. So in the midst of all this, when I was like, who am I? How do I navigate? And everything in the middle of the pandemic, I was like, great. My business is slow to none right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to reinsert myself into this industry, I want to do
Mm-hmm.
it in a way where I can network with folks. So I got my
Mm-hmm.
COVID compliance certification. I was
Oh
working on a
yeah.
film set, and go figure, like everyone on the film set was like from like Broadway shows, stagehands, stage managers, what have you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember driving to this film set one day and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna perform again. I don't think it's gonna happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I just need to kind of keep on this road and build these relationships. And out of nowhere, I got a call. Marshall Jones, Crossroads
Mm-hmm.
Theater in New Brunswick. Are you familiar with
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I
Crossroads?
know. Yes. 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 Yes.
So I used to perform there right out of college. I
Okay.
did their holiday shows. So I hadn't heard from him in a minute. And he's the type of person that's like almost like a second father to me, where he's just like, if
Mm-hmm.
he calls, you pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he picks up and he's just like, hey, I got a random call from Andre Shields. He's
Mm-hmm.
looking for a biracial singer.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give him your number? And I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
So
You
I'm just
can.
sitting home, just like phone is on full blast. And I'm just like waiting for literal Andre Shields to call me, but also simultaneous of like, Broadway doesn't exist. Why do you need
Mm-hmm.
a biracial singer?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, we're all just
Mm-hmm.
humans now. So he calls me. He's like, yeah, I'm looking for a singer. And I was just like, yeah, why? Like, you need a biracial singer. Let's talk business. Like,
Yeah.
you need a biracial singer.
Yeah.
Like, what's up?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm doing this show called Black by Popular Demand at 54 Below.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a biracial singer. There's a song in my show called The Tragic Mulatto. And I was just like, who wrote that? And he
Uh-huh.
said, I did. And so he wrote this song the year I was born and just like
Mm-hmm.
sat on it. And now he's like producing this incredibly black
Wait,
centric.
please hold. The year you were born, he wrote it?
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Uh-huh.
The year I was born, and the key was like untouchable, the perfect key for my voice.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, and I was like, do you need an audition? Do you need
Mm-hmm.
anything? And he's like, no. And he's like, but dream about it, think about it,
Mm-hmm.
let me know tomorrow if you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm just like sitting here. I'm just like, I have been shifted my pivot so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe was just like, hold up. You
Right.
don't need to pick and choose. You don't need to
Mm.
close doors.
Mm.
And so I'm going from like post conservatory life where I haven't sung a full song in like years. So we as
Mm-hmm.
actors know how that is. We're like, we're in
Yeah.
32 bar land.
32 bars, 16 bars.
Yep.
When they get down to 8 bars, I'm like, no, thank you. I'm not even auditioning.
Exactly.
Y'all have a good day.
Exactly. I was like, you just want to see what my outfit looks like at that point.
Yeah.
So now I'm just like, okay, I'm just saying yes. I'm saying yes to the blessing that
Mm-hmm.
is this phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in this rehearsal room with all these folks and singing a full song that he wrote. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like the most life-changing thing because it completely pulled the curtain back where I'm in the
Yeah.
same room as a literal Broadway legend, a Broadway deity, as he calls himself.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I am now numb to everything that was that was like beyond to me as like a
Mhm.
child. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Have you ever had that experience?
I mm, I don't think numb, but I think and maybe this is numb to it, but like, "Oh, I thought I was gonna have a bigger reaction to this." Or I
Mm,
thought I had built this up in my head so much. "Oh, no. Oh, okay, that's cool." Like, "Oh, that was cool to
yes.
experience."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's always so eerie. Like I had that I think when I got my equity card, like I got my equity
Mhm.
card from like a stage reading and didn't know I was getting my equity card.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like I got the letter in the mail and I was just like it was something as, it was a conservatory kid and
Yeah.
you're just like everyone's like talking about it. And then you get it and you're
Mhm.
just like, "Oh."
Oh.
And
Mhm.
I always hear from folks that like sometimes it's better to have those reactions
Mhm.
because it just shows that you're ready for it.
Ooh, ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can get with that. I
Like,
can get
when's the
with
time
that.
that you felt that where you're just like, "I thought I would be,
Mhm.
like, sobbing on the floor, but I was like, great."
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Mm. Trying to think of a time. Let's see. You Okay, so you know what's coming to mind for me? Turning down auditions.
Mm.
Like, I used to think that it was sacrilege, that, like, when an
Mhm.
opportunity came through, you had to, but I'm at the point now where, like, my agent will send it to me, I'll read through the part, I'll read through, okay, how much are they paying? Is it Broadway? Is it tour? Is it regional? Is it no, thank you. We'll get the
Mm.
next one. But I can do that now without, like, almost panicking of like, "Oh, I have to say no."
Yeah.
And I remember younger me would be like, "But I have to oh my god, the casting directors gonna think I'm not grateful and da and it's like,
Yeah.
"Just say no. It's
Well,
okay."
so what do you think led to you being okay with saying no? Like, what
Mhm,
was going on in
mhm.
your personal life? I'm flipping your
Yeah,
podcast
you
to
you
you,
are
Ayana.
flipping it on to
You didn't
me.
realize I'm usually the person asking the questions.
I honestly, I would say the pandemic pushed it into that way, but, maybe a year or 2 before, I was just kind of like, "I want to live a full life." Like,
Mm,
I'm not this whole I go away for a contract and then come back, and
mhm,
all I'm doing is biding my time until I go away for another one. It's like, I'm not really living life. Like, I'm just waiting for the next person to say yes to me so
yeah,
I have a job, right? And so I started to, like, kinda just feel like I still wanna perform, but I don't really like necessarily this, like, lifestyle, like, couldn't tell you how many birthdays and anniversaries and
yeah,
weddings and funerals and Christmases, like, all that stuff that I missed, and I'm like, "Oh." Like, looking back, I don't regret any of it because 'cause I've made lifelong friends, like, I've lived in a different country, like, I've been to 27 countries, and half of them was because I worked on a cruise ship, right?
yeah, yeah,
There are things that I'm grateful for, but the tide started to turn after my last ship when I was like, "Sometimes I just wanna hang out with my sister on a Saturday and go to brunch."
yes,
Like, that is a part of life, right? And
yeah,
so I think for me, that's when it started to shift, and then really in the pandemic, because I pivoted myself, right? Like we were talking earlier, I was gonna start a coaching business that then turned into a podcast, and I
mhm,
have voiceovers, which also is really where the money is at. If we're talking
mhm,
comparison between theater and voice, like that's where it's at. So it's like, oh, I actually get to say no because I'm fulfilling myself as a human being. Like, I'm living life. I'm going to see my cousins. Yes, I will be out of state for the next 4 days because I'm going to go hang out with family. If you can't handle that, then they'll be fine. I'm now booking vacations. I used to be so scared to book a vacation.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm going 4 places this year. I'm booked out. I don't know what y'all gonna do about it.
Yeah.
Like, to like having that confidence of like, I'm living my life. And like theater, you're gonna fit in where you fit in.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I've been like, I'm gonna say no to that because that's actually not doesn't fit in my schedule next year. So I'm not even gonna audition for that.
Yeah, it's like it's a sense of agency. Like I'll say like
Mm-hmm.
I think for
Mm-hmm.
everyone the pandemic was the ultimate resetter. We know this.
Yeah.
I was experiencing that before the pandemic when I started my company
Ooh, okay.
because with my company for the first time I was able to develop a sense of agency
Mm,
where I was like,
yeah.
"Great. This is just business right now."
Yeah.
And talking to like representation, you start to kind of get a sense of like what you want, what you don't want. I'm like, I don't want to be on a tour
Mm-hmm.
unless like there's a very clear intent of like,
Right.
great, this is out of town tryout.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's a lot of sacrifice and it's
Yes.
not for everyone. But some people who are like, if it's their life, like, please, like, I even tell folks, like, one of like the biggest blessings and curses that I had a great childhood and I had great parents.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be away. I don't need to live like almost like a circus like life.
Mm-hmm.
But also on the flip side, as an agent, it's like, wouldn't you want me to be a happy and full person? Because
Right.
when it comes time for that self tape, the camera does not lie.
It
You
does
can see in your
not.
eyes when you're miserable.
Yep. That desperation, honey, it will
Desperation.
it will get you every time.
Yes.
It will get you every time. And like the way actors, like I remember I used to monitor for Actors Equity.
Mm,
For those of you don't listening, Actors Equity is our stage union, and they hold auditions, and I used to be a monitor for them, and I was a monitor off and on for about 2 years. And Lori, I could not tell you how many times I like the desperation was palpable that I could feel actors approaching the desk. And I'd just be like, whoa, whoa, you're
yeah,
all right.
yeah,
You're okay. Just go in and do your best. Like, yes, we all need this job. Like, you would like to have an acting job. I understand. I'm an actor myself. Like, I literally get it. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna be on the other side of the table auditioning as well. But today I'm the monitor. And like I was outstanded by that. And so I was like, oh, so you're walking into the audition with this same energy that you just approached the monitor with, and now the casting director is about to get that?
yeah,
Like, that's so real. And it's like, right, I don't want to cast this person who is literally coming in with desperation.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think like the real moment is understanding that we all were that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And the scariest is like trying to find the moments where we still exhibit that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
find lately my current thing that I've noticed in myself is like, why do I need affirmation?
Ooh. Yeah.
Because a lot of what I do as a business owner is like it can be pretty thankless.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but like my affirmation is my bank account. Like thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why do I still need to have a verbal affirmation? Even like
Mm-hmm.
relationships in my life. I'm like, why do I need affirmation? Like
Mm-hmm.
like things couldn't be healthier and happier and
Mm-hmm.
joyous in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I still need that? And I think
Mm.
those are the moments where I'm just like, ooh, that's actor stuff right there.
Yeah. 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 To pull that string and find out, right? You're like, that's still that actor facing maybe that little chip on the shoulder or something, Because you're right. I mean, let's go down the rabbit hole. It's when we're auditioning, we are literally asking for someone to affirm us.
Of course.
Like that is literally what audition actually is. Like 99% of the people auditioning are pretty darn talented.
Yeah.
We're not fighting for the talent. We're fighting for someone to be like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the person you say yes to. You need to
Mm-hmm.
affirm me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, right. Mm-hmm. Why?
And then who am I after the affirmation?
That's a very good question.
Like, do you feel it in yourself too? Like, do you feel like you ever notice moments where you need it, or you notice like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this particularly feels good to have affirmation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's normal
Yeah.
to for that to feel good.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think it's normal too. I think as human beings, we want that because I think affirmation is also tied to connection and like connecting with somebody. So I
Yeah.
think a healthy dose of it is normal. But I do think there are moments when you're like, I think you want, and speaking for myself, you want the acknowledgement, right, that
Yeah.
you've done it or you've accomplished it, and you may do it to yourself, but you're like, oh, I also want the external validation or the external comment. And so it's that like identifying, well, why do I want the external? Because I
Yeah.
just told myself that I'm proud of myself. Why do I need somebody else to tell me that I'm proud of myself? But
Yeah.
I think that's also conditioning. Like I think that's the world we were born
Mm.
into. I think part of that is our conditioning of like everything needs to be external for it to become internal when it's the exact opposite. It needs to be internal to then be put external. Because I think that we, like, looking at like my baby cousin, for instance, she's not a baby, she's 3, but I'm going to call her a baby for the rest of her life. She's so free and so just like in tune with herself, right?
Yeah.
Like when I play with her, when I observe her, I'm like, oh, and I think it's because the world hasn't fully tried to inform her, like, oh, you need to think this or think that or not do this or not do that or yada, yada. And it's like, I think we lose that internal validation that we're born with because
Mm.
we live on the earth. Like we live in this world that has so many isms, especially for us
Mm.
as Black women. Like you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to fight all of that today once I get up. Like I'm not even out of bed and I have to fight all of this, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think there's part of us as we mature in society that loses the intern like we are born enough. We are born enough. So when do we lose the knowing that we are enough? And I think that's just through being in society, unfortunately.
Hmm. That is, listen, you just dug a hole but like found like deep gold right there. Is that I think the unfortunate thing is that it's almost like inescapable in a weird way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, because I was thinking even today, it's like I'm so grateful for this podcast and to connect with you today because it's just like the reality is, running a remote business in a country that is not mine. I don't know many
Mhm.
people here.
Mhm.
Like it's very isolating.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I find that like the isolation sometimes has been a means of protection
Mhm. Mhm.
because like folks will meet me, even like actors or folks, creatives, they're like, you're not like a usual actor. Like you don't have that like
Yes.
desperation,
Mhm.
whatever. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
yeah, but the thing is I still love acting.
Mhm.
I still love it.
Mhm.
So how do we find our school of fish?
Of course.
Like
Right.
when you become like a reformed actor, like an enlightened actor,
Ooh,
you know,
yes.
folks that, you know, like for example, it's like I did my solo show.
Mhm.
It went very well. And at the same time, I felt afterwards just so I don't know if it was numb, maybe
Mm-hmm.
numb, but like maybe guarded to compliments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I think as actors, we all feel like that rush, that dopamine rush of
Yeah.
compliments. And then you also feel the feeling when it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing for me with that show is just kind of like acknowledging that, like, I needed to birth this.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very specific journey.
Mm-hmm.
It was very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for everyone's presence. And like it's understanding like different methods of currency too. Because I
Yeah.
always get so triggered by like random people, like strangers after shows who you don't know, who will just like take up time and space talking
Mm-hmm.
to you and flooding with compliments. I see it all the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
very kind,
Yeah.
very, very kind. But there reaches a point where it's like, are you existing because my light is so bright that you just want to like
Mm.
in a way be near it and see if you can try to even like absorb some of
Some
it.
of
Like
it.
it's really
Mm-hmm.
because it reaches a
Mm-hmm.
point where at the end of the night when all this is gone, your compliments are not contributing to my bank account.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like that might be like really morbid and dark in a way, but it's very real. Like
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how do we navigate that? I don't know. And I think everyone has different methods of currency. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think running a business, it's steered me so hard towards profitability, where I was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
me sending this email can make me way more than this contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't know if I want this contract that much because I
Right.
understand what the return is. But at
S-
the same time, a big part of being an artist is understanding the currency of that is not money.
yes. Yes.
And that's
Absolutely.
really difficult because being on the other side, I understand just seeing the percentages of who gets what, actors will get very low. And
Oh, yes.
there are means of the system where like they can't even like take care of us after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how do we navigate that?
Yeah. I mean, you're posing a very good question. Like how do we navigate? I think first it's going back to what you said of like finding your tribe of enlightened actors, right?
Mm,
Those actors who are like, oh no, like we're going to approach this as a whole person, as a
mm,
fulfilled human being, as someone who's starting to understand the system, starting to understand the ecosystem also that is the entertainment industry, right? Because
yeah.
this could also go not just for theater but for, music and all these like everything within entertainment, and that it's like, "Oh, we're playing a little bit of a game." Like, and whether we want to admit it or not, it's like, oh, this all does tie back into capitalism, right? And so, like,
Mhm.
how to separate those two, right? Because the reality is, unless you choose to go live in the woods, which you can make that choice and become self sufficient, you can, that is a choice. Most of us are not. So,
Mhm.
because we're not, we have to participate in said capitalism. And we're choosing to participate in it in a way in the arts, right? Like, okay, I need to make green coupons, right? But to make these green coupons, I want to be in the arts. But the arts doesn't pay people a livable wage. So then that's where the like, wait a minute, but I have to live.
Yeah.
Why are you not paying me? And so right, the enlightened artist is like, wait, okay, I want to make this art. I want to express myself. I want to connect with people. I want to reflect the world. But I also got to make green coupons
Yep.
and like live a life that I like, right? I want to be able to go to the grocery store. I want to
Go
be
on
able
your
to go on
vacations.
vacation. I want to be able to take time. I'm taking the next month off. Thank you very much. Right? Like,
Yeah.
to have the luxury and the flexibility to do that. And it's like, how? I think everybody who wants to is figuring out how to. Because I think there are some, unfortunately, who are like, well, no, I'm gonna keep pounding the pavement. And I'm like, yes, however, I'm trying to think of the quote. Is it Albert Einstein? Who is it that says doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is
Mm-hmm.
insanity?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of it, where it's like when you realize, when you're enlightened, when the light bulb goes off and goes, wait a minute, you have to change course. You have to pivot. You have to figure out how to make it work for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's journey is going to look different.
Yeah.
But if you keep doing the same thing, but then expect a different result, honey, that's insanity.
Listen, you're talking Caribbean woman right now. Like, it's just like you just have, like, it's just making it work. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting because it's like, we all had our chapter in the 20s where, like, we're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm a Capricorn and, like, stability is just in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew, like, in my early 20s, I was just like, great. I feel like I had a pretty good childhood growing up in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, my mom, medical field, same as yours.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
dad in pharmacy. And I was just like, great. I'm in neither of those industries.
Mm-mm.
And the thing is, like, I felt like I grew up feeling safe and supported. Even in my early 20s, I was like, I know I want kids. How do I figure this out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think now what's so interesting in my 30s is I see a lot of my network. These are the folks back in my 20s that were just like, my God, you're starting a business. Like, if you put like 20% amount of effort that you're putting in your business to put it back into auditioning, like, where would you be? These are the same people that are coming to me and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I have an idea for a business. Like, I'm thinking about it. Can you, like, give me some guidance? And that's like, it's wild because objectively, Ayana,
Mm-hmm.
objectively,
Mm-hmm.
I look around, like, at my life now and I'm just like, if I just stayed the actor track, I don't think I'd be able to afford the things I could afford these days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know how I had the wherewithal to look ahead that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just like, it's really scary. And I
Yeah.
don't think people talk about it enough.
Yeah. It is. It's
And
very
pivoting is
scary.
so shamed.
It really is. It really is. It's shamed. And I mean, that goes back to what we're taught. It's like Broadway or bust. And
Yeah.
that is very, the first word that's coming to mind is demeaning to like us as people, because we're multifaceted. Human beings are multifaceted. So why wouldn't humans who decide to be actors be multifaceted and be able to do different things, right? And to pivot and to change and to also change your mind, because you can do
Mm,
something and be like, actually, never mind, I'm doing this instead, right? Like, to change your mind as many times as you want to.
yeah.
And so again, why is it shamed? We probably have to ask the greater society why. Because I feel like that's just not even in the arts, that's just in life. Someone makes a
Yeah.
decision to do something else. Well, why? Well, this, well, that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Anybody ask for your opinions? I made a
Yeah.
decision. I want to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I want to do something else, I'm going to go do something else. But I
Yeah.
think that's a societal thing of like, but you made a decision, so stick with it. Yes, if it continues to make sense for your life, but then if it doesn't continue to make sense, then you have to change.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sign of growth. That's all we can ask for is
Yeah.
growth. And I think that was the thing, right now, you often kind of gauge, you take an inner temperature of like, what is my relationship with the industry? What is my
Yeah.
relationship with art
Mm-hmm.
all the time? And I think my biggest fear of, because, full disclosure, it's like now, yes, I did my cabaret show.
Mm-hmm.
The venue came back and they're just like, we want to have you as a reoccurring cabaret artist.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, whoa. Number one, I'm in another country,
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not bouncing back and forth like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Number two, that was a one night, incredibly special, vulnerable performance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to package that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, But it's also like this question, which is the biggest question, zooming out. So I always tell myself, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. Like, will I continue to grow?
Mm-hmm.
That's like the most important thing
Yeah.
in life is like, am I growing right now?
Mm-hmm.
Just checking in. Am I growing? And like the only thing that like is really bugging my brain because folks are always like, go into producing, you're gonna go into producing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, man, like I'm not done acting. And many folks will always try to determine that. Like, so you're done, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no,
No.
no. I tell like my dream, honestly, is like I'd love to like have some kids, have a great like chapter like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be like a high school principal on an episodic.
Yes. And I'm here for that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Like
want
that'd be
that for
so
you
cool.
too.
It'd be so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like you just kind of hit the nail on the head and I'm going to bring this full circle now where it's like people are trying to close doors for you that aren't
Mhm.
even meant to be closed, right?
Yeah.
Like you can have all these doors open right now, but that doesn't mean you're walking through all of them. So your actor door is still open and will be wide open until the moment you need to walk through it again, right?
Yeah.
Like we I think we sometimes try to force doors open that don't need to be opened or can't be opened in the moment, or we
Mm.
try to close doors that we should have never tried to open, right? Like we
Mm.
shouldn't this I shouldn't try to close this door. It doesn't need to be closed. Leave the door open and what will be, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that's also again it goes back to I feel like also people want finality. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, finality and
Mhm.
something like, "Oh, you're done acting, right? So you're done." Why why do I need to be done? Who says I need to be finished, right?
Yeah.
Like but again, I think as multi-hyphenates and people who really lean into human beings being multifaceted, I can have all of these pots on the stove at the same time. And one can be in
Mhm.
the back simmering while I'm stirring
Yep.
the one in the front. That doesn't mean I'm ignoring it. It just means it's kind of doing its own thing over there. I'm
Yeah.
aware of it. I see the pot. I see it. It's
Yeah.
simmering. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm concentrating on the one I'm stirring in the front.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's it. People are trying to close your doors that aren't meant to be closed in the first place. Take your
It
hands off my
is.
door handle.
It is. I mean, it's twofold because I can understand how people want to figure out how to identify you.
Yeah. Yes. That.
And also, they
Mm-hmm.
also want to be able to identify themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, when you're growing and you're doing some scary stuff and you're taking risks and they're not, then they're
Yeah.
just like, there's got to be something wrong with this.
Mm-hmm.
There's that.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, I tell everyone because I think that career, professional, anything is incredibly spiritual.
Yeah.
Um, and so your body does not lie.
It
Like
sure does
that's always
not.
like my reoccurring things. Like you can feel like, the I feel like auditions always I'll always be like a little nervous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure you're even here and you're just like the second that
Yeah.
this stops, you got that self tape tonight and you're just like,
Like, okay, yeah, I can do it. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that to me is like, I'm not done.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I'm not done. And yes, it's on the back burner. Even as like, this solo show I did, and you have one coming up too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to decide when to perform.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do is to actually decide it.
Yeah. Is to actually decide it and like then do it.
Yeah.
And then like you're well, I said the other day, so by the time this airs, I would have actually done my show by the time this episode airs.
Woo!
Woo! So I've done it as we're talking. But the speeding train, I said something to someone. I was actually at a friend's cabaret last night and I was so proud of her. And just like, so I was talking to another friend and I was like, oh yeah, mine's coming up like in a week and I'm on the speeding train, right? Like, she
Yeah.
was like, no, 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 you are the train. I was like, what? She's like, no, no, you are
Ooh.
the train. You're deciding how fast this is going. You're deciding when to stop, who to pick up, you're the train.
Yes.
So yes, the train is speeding, but you are it. So you're
Yeah.
deciding, right? And so
Yeah.
even with that, with my solo show, it was like, I've been thinking about it for a couple years. And it was one of those things where it was like, you just have to do it before you're ready. You just have to do it like before you're ready. And
Yeah.
then you'll figure it out along the way, right? Like we can't have everything figured out before we get to it. And so it's
No.
like, just do it. Just do it. You will, and I figured it out.
You did that. You've done the
Yeah.
hardest part,
Yeah.
and you are the train. And like, you will have other opinions that might be coming in. Like I had a friend, one of my best friend, love him to death. He was like, you need like a splash, like bam opening number. You need that.
Yeah.
And I took the advice and I was just like, great. And so I'm like, running through it, coaching, rehearsing. And I was like, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I had like a vocal coach I was working with. I had, my fiance who's my music director. And they both just were like, then don't do it.
Right. Right.
You're the train.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're all just like, honestly, like doing your own solo show. I can't wait to tune into yours because I'm very candidly like I hate cabaret so much. Oh, I hate them so
Do you
much.
really?
I hate cabarets so much. Ayana, you
You
tell
tell me
me
how
you
you
like
really
cabarets.
feel. I
You like going to
mean,
cabarets?
I mean, the ones that I have been to, yes, because I've select the ones I go to. Like, I don't just go
I
to anybody's cabaret.
I think I've just been burnt by like really cheesy musical theater cabaret.
Fair. Oh, okay. See, I'm very specific about. I go to very specific people's shows.
Yeah.
Very specific. So the ones that I've been to, I have enjoyed thoroughly.
And that's what I feel on people is that like you
Mhm.
have to be specific in protecting yourself and your art and the art that you expose yourself to. Cause
Mhm.
I'm like, listen, like, I don't know if you've had this chapter. I've had chapters where I'm just like, I had to not go to shows for a while because they would just
Mhm.
make me mad. Have you
Fair.
ever felt that way?
I Yes. I was in a season of like I wasn't booking for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
so it would make me upset to go to a show. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, or especially if I auditioned for it, and then
Mm.
I was like,
And that's
Ayana,
not,
this is not
that
healthy.
makes
This is
sense.
not
Yeah.
healthy. What are you angry? Because I've also learned what's meant for me is meant for me. There's been
Yeah.
too many instances in my life where I'm like, oh, oh, like now at 37 years old, like oh, girl,
Yes.
what's meant for you is meant for you. Don't be upset about like nothing. You didn't
Yeah.
audition for that. Oh well, you will, girl. It wasn't meant for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the best thing is like, there was one time like Andre will randomly text me and be like, check out this this interview that's on whatever Sunday news or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think we were talking about Kwanzaa and he had this one like audiobook Kwanzaa that was on the radio. He's like, tune into it.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to it, and it was a voiceover, and I was like, Andre Shield's like, why aren't you doing this voiceover? And he's like, well, it's a blessing that wasn't meant for me.
Mm,
And I'm just
yeah.
like, man, even you, who's just like a literal Tony winner,
Hmm.
like one award from an EGOT,
Hmm.
just objectively, it's like so therapeutic to listen to someone in that chapter and just be like, not my blessing.
I'm a- that.
And another thing, ooh, we um I'm not doing name drops for the sake of name drops, but
Mhm.
I will say people's names because I want to acknowledge the gems that they leave on this earth when they don't realize
Mhm.
I may not I'll be listening.
Mhm.
We had Amber Iman coming over for dinner once,
Mhm.
and she's about like different contracts that she didn't book and whatever. And one person was like, I didn't book that, but I heard that it ended up being like really a big mess. And she's like, I tell people all the time, rejection is protection.
Yes, it is.
Have you heard that before?
I have heard that before and lived it.
Yes.
I have like I Oh, I haven't thought about this in a while, but you made me think of there was a production that I wanted to do so bad. Like it was perfect. And I was just like, I was in final callbacks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is mine. I didn't get it right. Fast forward like 3 or 4 years.
Mm,
I'm now working with a very good friend, one of my closest friends now. He was in that production. And when I told him about, like, I was just so upset about that. Like, I was like, I had a vision in my head that was going to turn my career and da-da-da. And he was like, you would have hated being in that show, Ayana.
yeah.
You would have hated being in that show. He said, that was your protection. You thought that was for you, but it wasn't. I was in that cast and I couldn't wait for the show to close.
Yeah.
I was like, what? He was like, you would have hated it.
Yeah. It's scary. It's scary to listen to because like your psyche just like, it's almost like dating in a way where you meet someone and
Mm-hmm.
you feel in all the gray areas of
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this is the person of my dreams. And the reality is like, they're kind of a mess. It's not it. And I think that is like the harshest thing to accept. I
Mm-hmm.
think my pivot internally artistically is like, as a Jersey girl, grew up with
Mm-hmm.
all those Broadway ads and like
Mm-hmm.
I love Broadway. I love people. I love Broadway people. I will sit down and like the celebrities to me will always be, the Danny Burstein, it'll be the
Mm-hmm.
Audra, it'll be,
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, it'll be you know, all these names that maybe
Yeah.
mainstream people may not know who they
Nope.
are,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but those to me are like the gods of art.
Yes.
And simultaneously, I think that maybe if I did book a Broadway show, maybe it would have like broken my heart in a weird way.
Uh-huh. I've heard that too. I've heard that too.
Really, you have?
Yes. The people are like, Broadway wasn't what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I've literally, yes, a couple people are like, it's not what I thought it was going to be. And I was like,
Yeah.
really? Like, what? They're like,
Yeah.
it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. All my friends on Broadway, I'm just kind of, I hang out with them and I listen to them. And it's just like grievance after grievance after grievance. And it's really sad.
Yeah. 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 It's
So what is that
one of those.
pivot? Have you done any television? Have you done film?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
what is your vibe there? Because for me, I'm like, I think that's a business model that I feel better investing into. I
Yeah.
like self-tape culture. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
that's it. It's like everyone is different. Point
Yes.
blank.
Yes.
The thing that I've learned is that like I love squeezing in the self-tape between meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like playing roles, like educated
Mm-hmm.
roles, my high
Mm-hmm.
school principal, manifestations right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a byproduct of getting to know who I am.
Right.
Residuals, like that's a great thank you. That's a great concept.
Right.
But like, what have you learned about your artistry? Like, what is the type of contracts or art that you're like, this is where I will thrive at my highest?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think for me, I think it's the voiceover realm. Like I was
Mm,
introduced to that, and I was actually talking to someone on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and she was like, you had to get to this point, right? She was like, you didn't even know voiceovers was a thing when you were like knee deep in musical theater. I was like, no, not really. Like I was so tunnel vision and so just
yes.
pigeonholed in it that I wasn't looking at the broader artistry, right? And so
Yeah.
for me, I really, really love voiceovers. And it's one of those things that like I was kind of thrown into it. Like again, what I tell you like people ask me, how did you get into it? I'm like, oh, God handed it to me. Like literally,
Mm,
like I opened my first off-Broadway show and some of my friends came to celebrate me. I sat next to my now agent in a restaurant and we're chit-chatting, da 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 da. And she's like, what are y'all celebrating? I was like, oh, I'm an actor. I opened my first off-Broadway show. Da, da. She was like, I'm a voiceover agent. So we exchanged emails. Literally about 3 days later, my intention, right, is to email her to ask, where do I even start? Like that was my
mm,
intention. Say, nice to meet you, yada, yada. She's like, hey, do you have a demo? I said, no. I said, but I took a class like 5 or 6 years ago. I still have like my MP3 from that. She's like, sure, send it to me. Send it to her. She was like, all the agents in the office love your voice. Would you like to freelance with us? That was literally like a time span of maybe a week and a half from the day I met her. I say yes. And that day she sends me an audition. My very first voiceover audition, I was under a blanket with my iPad. I have no clue what I'm doing, Lori. I have no clue, but I said yes. Here we are. Here we are.
Say
I don't
yes.
know what's happening.
Yeah.
So a month later, I booked my first voiceover. They signed me to the agency 6 months after that. I've been with them for 5 years now and have booked some amazing contracts.
Ayana, it's
Like it
that's
was
what it
handed
is.
to me.
It doesn't have to be this hard.
Mm-mm.
Point blank. It does not have to be this hard. And like that's the thing is that like all our jobs are is just to like listen.
Yeah.
Look at what the universe is giving us
Yes.
and just listen and
Mm-hmm.
honor it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it. But
But
our
when you're
egos,
desperate, you don't want to hear that.
ooh, come on. It's that when you're desperate, you don't want to listen. You don't want to listen.
Yeah.
You don't want to listen. But I had a friend say that too. They were like, Ayana, you were in a place where you could hear. You were in a place where God was like, yep. The universe was like, she's ready.
Yes.
Because what if I was in my head? I might not have even spoken to my now agent sitting next to me, right?
No.
But I was in a space of receiving. I was happy. I was like, my friends are here celebrating me. I'm supported. I'm laughing, right? Like I was in an open space. I was listening. And so, yeah,
But also
voiceovers for me is what it is.
But above all, you're in a chapter where you're like, I'm a bomb human.
Yes. Yeah.
And as people don't realize that with agents and managers, is they're just kind of like,
they want to work with bomb humans.
Yeah, do you really want to hang out with? And I remember people used to tell me that in college, and I'm just like, yeah, but like, look at these notes I can hit, and this and that, and it's like, no. Are you a bomb human?
Right. Would I get a coffee with you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was so like so. My fiance, I'm so proud of him. He's a bomb dude.
Yes.
So he's a music director, composer, all that stuff. So I could see like Broadway and stuff from his perspective.
Yeah.
He's like stepping in to be the next worldwide music supervisor for The Lion King, which is why we're here in Toronto. And so he had a meeting or had like a manager coming to like observe him conduct down at Ravinia Festival over the summer. And because I think for him it was his first time having a manager kind of, deal with that whole like meeting portion.
Yeah.
They had like multiple dinners together and I'm like, we're going to lock this down.
Yeah.
Manager comes out, watches his rehearsal. I sat with him. We're just chatting, hanging out. We ended up grabbing dinner, the manager and I. And in my head, I was just like, we know what this is. This person just wants to be like, is this someone I can hang out with?
Yep.
Signed, still delivered. Like he's a rep now, but also it's like, when am I grabbing dinner with him next? Like we had a bomb time.
Right. When are we going to dinner? I know you signed my husband, but when are we going to dinner? What's happening?
I know, exactly. We were like on a flight and he was like, wait, you're Facebook friends with him? I'm not Facebook friends with him.
You were like, catch up, friend. You late. Catch up. Yep, I'm friends with him. We Facebook friends.
It's just like actors, it's like please just be bomb humans.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Because we want to work with other bomb humans. That's really, really it. Like, because when the show is closed, or when it even doesn't get picked up, or when the series gets canceled, I still want to hang out with you. I still want to be like, let's go grab a coffee. What you doing?
Yeah, and who are you? Like I think this is an interesting thing is like I think even going from theater training to on-camera training, which I highly recommend folks do, because theater training, which I found was like there's the voice work, there's the body work, there's character work, all that fun stuff. Yes. But then on camera, it's just kind of like, great, who are you?
Yeah.
And that's terrifying, but it is incredible for human development because I'm sure there's like movies where you just watch certain actors and you're just like, why are you so magical? Like Morgan Freeman, why are you so magical?
Right. Because he knows who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how do people get there? Like, it's really uncomfortable. And I think like, and like, I just met you, but like,
Mhm.
Ayana, like, I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm getting to this chapter of like knowing myself,
Mhm. Mhm.
which makes me more excited to go back. Like, here I'm in Toronto. I'm like, great. I'm just going to get an agent and like go for like Canadian television. Why not?
Mhm.
Why not?
Yeah. Why not?
And I guarantee you, I'm going to book stuff.
Yep. Yep.
You know when this is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. You do. You do. You're like, okay, I'm here. I'm here. But it's that getting to know yourself. Like, I think I'm in that era too. The last couple years, I'm like, oh, I know who Ayana is now. Like
Yeah.
before, it really was faking it until you make it. But now, oh, no, honey, you know who you are. You know who you are.
Yeah.
And that's when things are going to start to happen.
Yeah.
Meant for me because I know who I am. Because they can't happen before that.
But the scariest thing is that you have to like have like a true hero's journey, which is like not leave the industry, but like do other stuff
Ooh,
to
yes.
find yourself. Like
Yes.
even when I did like one co-star in Orange Is the New Black, and I will always remember one of the actors on set. He told me when we were like in our van heading to set, he was just like, there is like a special curse of when you have kids, you book
Mm-hmm.
way more. He's like, the second I had my firstborn, that is when I booked way more. And I was like, how do you explain that? He's like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. And I feel like a lot of actors are always just like so afraid to start families.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, for me, I knew that my capacity of overthinking just completely went out the window. So
He
I
doesn't have
knew when
time for it.
yes, when the audition comes in, you're just like, great, I have this one window of time
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here to do this work and I'm going to do
Mm-hmm.
it well. Great. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to go get off set and pick up my kid from school.
Right. Right. You don't have time to be in your head. You don't have time to, like you said,
Yeah.
like overthink and stress. I gotta go pick up a child in 2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
get it done. And that may be also part of it. You, like we were saying, the camera picks up things. So if you're just like, okay, who am I? What am I playing? What am I doing? Great, it's on tape. Here you go. I'm gonna go live my life.
Yeah.
That reads as, oh, this actor kind of know. Oh, I like this person, because
Yeah.
you don't have time for pretenses.
You don't. But it's also like a complete acceptance of where you are that day.
Ooh, ooh,
Life isn't cut and dry.
yes.
Like here's the fun thing. How do you read me today? Even from like the start of our session, like what is your
Mhm.
objective read of like, let me describe who Lori is. What's her vibe?
Ooh, I would have said focused. Um, Definitely like someone who likes to have fun, but who wears that hat of like, okay, now I'm focused, and now I'm not. Now I have my silly hat on, like I'm about to be in the kitchen with a spoon, like singing while I'm cooking. That's kind of what you gave me immediately today. Like I'm in that balancing of both, right? Like, okay, let me get this done, but also like, when's playtime? Like, are we done yet?
Wow.
Are we done yet?
That is so cool. It's like I think like the best part is when you can like actually, this is the best part of being an actor too, is that you can
Mm-hmm.
actually just like understand that you're like, I'm just gonna be present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My job is to be present. Like going into this, it's like before the session, it was just like no makeup, a Mickey Mouse sweatshirt,
Mm-hmm.
going through work the best as I can, working on save the dates and just like getting super overwhelmed. Like I think I
Mm-hmm.
was like kind of navigating around being like, I feel overwhelmed today. And
Mm-hmm.
then I know after this session, it's like um I have this like longtime client that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They reached out, they're like, we're putting our 60 days notice to end our terms.
Mm-hmm.
In turn, we want to consider you for more work for next year. Can you draft a full proposal for us? And I'm just like, and so now I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, great. After this podcast, I'm like, I'm putting together a proposal
Mm-hmm.
to prove to someone that like even after I have given them stellar services,
Mm-hmm.
please stay with me. Like it's a weird energy, Ayana. And I think
Yeah.
like I knew going into this podcast, I was like, I need this for myself today. So thank
Mhm,
you for
mhm.
that. But I was like, I
Okay.
saw on my calendar, I was like, I'm gonna, fluff out my hair, make it look real good.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna put my makeup on, put on a turtleneck, I have leggings on. It's like business up top, relax
Party
on
in the bottom.
bottom.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And I'm just gonna be present because like that is where God is. That is where
Mhm.
life is. It is just
Mhm.
kind of like trusting,
Ooh, yes.
constantly
Yes.
trusting. I was like, I know that there will be things discussed in this session that will inform whatever I have to do for the rest of the day.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you tie that in a pretty little bow. That's what literally this is all about, is trusting. Like in
Yeah.
every step of your life, of your artistry, of everything. And I think that's the hardest part for us. Because I feel like, because I even talk about this with my therapist, I feel like, oh, okay, I trusted. Aren't I done? Like, don't I get my gold star? I trusted. We're good. You're like, no, no, no. You have to keep trusting for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
This is going to be constant. And it's trying to figure out, oh, how to just stay in that trusting space, in that energy, in that prayer, in that manifestation of like, I trust, but also pulling the receipts. Like I've had to tell myself, Ayana, baby girl, you have receipts
Yes, you
of
do.
when you trust it works out. Like you can't forget, like you can actually pull receipts on your life that it
Yeah.
has worked out when you trust.
Yep. Yep.
It's that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think staying in the moment is like, you got to stay there.
Yeah. I will quote Kiara Brown Clark. She's in the Disney offices, also an
Mhm.
actor.
Mhm.
She if you know, you should also chat with Kiara. You will love her.
Done. Let's do it. We'll talk
But
after
she
this. I'll
all
get her stuff from you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But she always said, she's like, my gut has never steered me wrong.
Mhm.
You know Holdfast in the city? You know that restaurant Holdfast?
I don't. Mm-mm.
Okay. So about Kiara, so she's in like she was Mary Poppins original
Mhm.
Broadway cast, incredible dancer, tall, gorgeous black woman. Now she's climbed up the ranks, works in like the educational department of DTG,
Mhm.
and then is like a co-owner of Holdfast plus like two other restaurants in New York City.
Yeah.
She's like does so many things,
Mhm.
and like also was a co-producer in Kit Kat Club. Like she is just so many things. And when she said that, my gut has never steered me wrong. I was just like,
Mhm.
that is like,
Mhm.
even you just hearing that right now, like it just does something to your soul where you're just
Yeah.
like, that's trust right
Just
there.
yeah. Yeah. It is trust. It is trust. And
I
going
hate when
back to
people I hate when
Mhm.
people are just like, what do you have any regrets? Like I think I had one podcast for someone, they're like, do you have any
Mhm.
regrets? And
Mhm.
I'm like, no. Every decision just shapes the next one. It's
It just shapes the next
pivots.
one. That part, that part.
Pivot.
I'm just pivoting. I'm not no, I don't regret anything. You know what I regret? There's only one thing that I regret. Not taking a hot air balloon when I was in South Africa with my friend. That's one thing I regret. And
But
I'm
that
going back
only
to South
means that you're
Africa
gonna
just
do it.
I did it in Morocco. When I was in Morocco 2 years ago, I did it. But I'm like,
Yeah.
no, now I have to still go back to South Africa to do it with my friend. That's literally the only thing I regret. I'm like, dang, I should
Yes.
have done that.
It's just trusting. It's trusting. Like this is like
Mhm.
in the spirit of travel, we were visiting some friends in a city called Bilbao
Mhm.
in Spain. No one knows
Mhm.
what Bilbao is. It's fine.
Yeah.
Basque country of Spain.
Uh-huh.
And so we're like we're like, we don't know what Bilbao is, but like let's just like go to Barcelona,
Mhm.
get some time, and then we'll fly to Bilbao because there's no direct flights.
Okay.
I tell you, Ayana, we spent like 24 hours in Bilbao, and I was just like, we should have booked our entire flight just to spend time in Bilbao.
Wow.
Because we went out there, and it was just like, that's why our dog is named Bilbao.
Yes.
Because like there's a huge dog statue, and that's what like led to me spiritually being like, I want a dog and I want to name her Bilbao.
Yeah.
The view and everything. And so I told, my fiance, I told Shauna, I was like, this only means that our pilgrimage is we got the
Mhm.
dog, we named her
Mhm.
Bilbao.
Mhm.
The second she passes, love you girl, we're going to Bilbao.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
everyone has those little like seeds of
Seeds.
thought. And I tell everyone, I'm like, your seeds of thought are
Yeah.
very different from my seeds.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, it is. That is what's awesome. And that's what needs to be like upheld and praised and nurtured, right?
Yeah.
Like all of our seeds of inspiration are different. But I think this is going back to the larger part of society of like, yes, be different, but then don't be different. Like follow the quote unquote American dream blueprint. And you're like, okay, so what do you want me to be? Like, what do you want? Like as a kid, you're like, yeah, explore in imagination. And I have this idea. You have that idea. Let's do this. And then at some point, it's like, oh no, never mind. You all need to do that.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what is your current, like, what is like a seed of thought in you right now? You're like, ooh, I really want to explore this.
Oh.
That no one would ever know. Like mine right now is like, I want to like get really good at scatting.
Ooh.
Like I want to take like scatting classes so that like if I do want to become like a cabaret performer, I want it to be like jazzier and I want to be like a really good scatting chick.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yes, I love that for you. The first thing that comes to mind, which this may actually sound bonkers, but I want to learn if anybody teaches, because this is actually, now that I'm thinking, this may help me with on-screen acting. If anyone teaches how to have a poker face, because my face tells on me. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, and my friend's like, you don't like it, and I'm like, no, I didn't say anything, and they're like, your face did.
Yeah,
and that's my whole life, right? And I'm like, I didn't say anything. They're like, your face said it. So like in the back of my head, I've always been like, does someone teach like a class of like literally how to have a poker face? Because I've looked at people and I'm like, how is your face? How are you not expressive? Because sometimes I want to be that way because my face tells on me.
No, I think that's like Black woman magic. I think I'm the same way. I absolutely am. What I will offer is like, that is what's going to make you a tremendous on-camera actor because it's all very much subtext. Right. So now it's just a matter of like getting really good at preparing your subtext and believing so hardcore the thoughts of yourself.
Ooh.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like for me, it's like sometimes I like audition and you can tell when you're like nervous.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism. What's next line? I think in theater you can fool people, but on camera, so you can see it in your eyes.
You can see it, yes, in the eyes. Yes, exactly. Because you can see yourself thinking. You're like, she's thinking about that. She's thinking. There, she found the line. There it is. Still thinking.
Yeah. I dare you for one of your takes for your self-tape, and send me that take.
Okay.
Between your lines, write down what you're thinking.
Ooh.
And memorize those thoughts. So that it's just like, so it's like instead of like a, I have yellow flowers, aren't they beautiful? For me, I was just thinking like, I'm just making this up right now. But if I wanted to be like, I have yellow flowers, aren't they so beautiful? Two different. What did those two reads look like to you?
One, the first one you were uninterested. You were just like, oh, I'm just kind of telling you, yeah, I have yellow flowers. The second one seemed like, no, I want to emphasize, like, I really want you to understand that I have these beautiful flowers. And like, I want you to see them like I see them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like before, it was just like, I'm frustrated and objectively, like, I hate how difficult acting is. People don't realize it. And my second was like, I'm trying to consider my centerpieces for my wedding. And I'm being very intentional of choosing flowers that represent different people in my life and what their favorite flowers are. Yeah. And so the second one was just me thinking about that. Yeah. Ooh, I love that. It's a lot, but also it's a lot of work. But I was like, just about to say that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Right.
Right. And this is why we need to get paid for auditions. But that's a whole
Yes.
nother rabbit hole.
Yes. Aren't there some European pay actors like a certain amount?
I've heard that through the grapevine. I don't know if that's like confirmed or not, but I have heard that through the grapevine that they do actually pay actors for auditions because it's a lot of work, as you have just
Like
displayed.
how much would you want to get paid for a self tape where you would feel like you would have some integrity?
Oh, here's the thing, because I don't have a permanent in where I'm at right now. I don't have a permanent self tape set up, so I have to take it
Mm,
down and to up
yep.
and all of this. And I'm like,
Same.
okay, so that is half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, am I using the am I memorized? If I memorize, it's different. If I'm not, if I'm using my teleprompter app, well, let me put the stuff in the teleprompter app. Oh, what am I
Mm-hmm.
wearing? What's the outfit I mean, it's gonna take me 2 hours.
Yes.
Like, I need you to maybe about 50 an hour, at least.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Because what?
Yeah. I think that's
Mhm.
very fair. Like even if like offices were like, here is like an Amazon gift card for
It's
$50.
right.
I'd be like, great, this audition's paying for a new nice toaster. Like I'm like,
Good. Mhm. Mhm.
that feels good.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Yes. It does. It
But then
does.
on top of that, to like not even get feedback.
It's that part. We're kind of flying blind when you're like, well, can I at least have a note on what I should adjust?
Yeah. But
Or
then
nothing.
that's
Or
yeah.
nothing. Adjust nothing. It was great. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But then it's just like as an actor, I'm just like, I think that's why I love self tapes because I'm just like, great, I get to actually do the thing today.
Mhm.
And whatever I submit is because I like it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. There's that.
But some
There's that.
actors hate self tapes.
I
Are you one of those?
yeah, okay, so let me put it to you this way. I don't actually mind the like more TV and film self tapes. I don't actually mind those because I'm gonna be like literally be on camera. Like I don't mind those.
Yeah.
For me, it's more the theater auditions that I'm just like, this is annoying. So I'm here giving you sides, giving you songs. Sometimes I've been asked to put a dance combo on tape. I'm doing all
Mm-hmm.
of this for a camera.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I want to be in the room for theater. For TV and
Yes.
film, I don't actually mind those as a self tape, and that I'm just with my reader and I can choose what I like. I'm actually okay with that. It's the theater that
Yeah.
I'm like, this is very annoying and I don't like this. I don't like
How do
this at
you
all.
how do you balance like not getting mad at theater? Because like there's so many things systemically that I'm just like, guys, like this does not make sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
So how do you balance your anger with it? Because I think like for me, I feel very self protecting
Mhm. Mhm.
with theater projects. I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
Um like I think I'm for the first chapter of my life, I'm like I think I've closed the door on theater contracts.
Mhm.
Um Cabarets, game,
Mhm.
because you are the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like what kind of keeps you going?
Mhm. Mhm. I think for me, there are certain roles I still want to play, right?
Mm,
And it may even come to a point where I just produce it myself, right? Like,
ooh,
is there a theater that will let me be the lead actress and also produce it? Like, do you guys want to do a production of Sister Act? Great, I'll produce it as long as you let me be Dolores. Right? Like it may come to that. But I think
yeah.
for me, there are just certain roles I still want to play. And with theater, I've also gotten to the point again with saying no. I don't want to play that. I don't want to do that. And I'm not going to. Like I know you're looking for the stereotypical black woman or the side or the I no thank you.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that. Like I'm also and I've always kind of been this way. I'm like I'm a leading lady. And if you don't see me that way,
We're not aligned.
we're not aligned and that's okay. So I'm moving on to the next thing. Like
Mhm.
I'm going to wait until someone is like, "Hey, do you actually want to audition for Dolores?" And not the cover again because I've been the cover. I'm like, "That's great." I need to be casted as it. And if you don't,
That's good.
you don't want to, that's fine. You don't have to see me that way, but I see myself that way. So
Listen,
I,
people can smell that on you. I think that's the thing is that people can smell like cover energy.
mm-hmm,
They can smell swing energy.
mm-hmm,
And people don't realize that really transitions into people's personal lives.
yeah,
Like I want to be like original cast energy
absolutely.
to everyone in my life,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It is. It's giving original cast. It's giving, I created the role. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I think voiceovers have done that for you.
Oh, absolutely. They absolutely have. Like, it's just like, oh no, that's my voice on this entire campaign.
Yeah.
Oh,
But even here,
okay.
but even on this podcast, it's just like I'm in your house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are in Ayana's house. We are this is all you. Everything that
Yeah.
you've done up to this moment, producing all the questions, the tone of it, like this is not like your everyday podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And I know that. I know that. And you're right. It is that it's my house. I could do what I want, right? I'm the producer, I'm the host, I make the decisions. And also, right, asking the questions that I feel I'm like, no, I want the answer to those questions. And
Mm,
to also find the artists that are willing to share, that are willing to like be vulnerable, that are willing to answer the question honestly, right? And take away the pretense, take away the, well, here's the answer to your question. And a lot of it, which I appreciate, is like, I'm also still learning. So yes, I'm answering the question, but I'm still in the learning phase of it, right? But I'm 2 steps ahead of you, so I can tell you, right? Like, I think sometimes we feel like we have to accomplish it before we can share. And it's like,
yeah.
no, no, no. I'm about 2 steps ahead of you on this part of the journey. So I'm gonna, share what I learned in those 2 steps, right?
Yeah.
And so that's also kind of what the whole, like, how I operate, right? It's like, I'm a teacher student, right? Like, I'm also taking it from my yoga practice. Like, I'm a teacher student. Like, I'm always going to be learning, but I have to give myself credit for what I have learned and for what I do
Mm,
know, right? But also, like, I am still learning, right? Like, life is gonna life, and I'm still gonna be learning things. But to
yeah.
know, but you do know something. Like,
Yes.
you do know something.
And
And to
there's
sit in
value to
that,
that.
and there's value. Yeah.
Like how do you choose your guests?
Yeah.
Because that is really specific.
Hmm.
Like that
Hmm.
is a deep dive that you reached out to me. I was like, oh, like
Yeah.
you are watching.
Yes.
Like how do you pick your people?
So it's been a mix. It's been a mix of, like, I think literally, except for 2 or 3 people, I either know everybody directly or indirectly by 1 or 2 other people.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was first just like my literal, like, friends who are artists who I know. And then it started to filter out to like people they know. But also, like you said, like, I watch people. Like, I'm on their Instagram, I'm on their Facebook, I'm on different things, just watching how they move as people, right? As humans, as like, oh, actually, I want to talk to them about this. Like, there's been a couple of, like, someone put a video. I remember I asked her after I saw this video because she was so in this moment of like, I think I'm breaking up with theater, with like my
Mm,
relationship with theater. And she was like crying in the reel. And she was just like, I don't know. I'm trying to process this. I'm trying, like, theater has been like the center of my life for so
mhm,
long. And now that it's not, am I doing the wrong thing? Am I like, and I was like, oh, we need to have a conversation. I need to speak to
mm,
her, right? And so it's that of like, basically, like you said earlier, enlightened artist. Like, who are the enlightened
mhm,
artists around me, or directly connected or indirectly connected to me? Of like, yeah, let's have a conversation because the tide has changed, and we got to talk about these things because
Yeah.
it's people still like to brush it under the rug and we can't any longer, right?
And
Like,
do you find that like everyone that you have interviewed
mhm,
is an enlightened artist or going through that process?
mhm. I think I think for the most part, yes, actually. Like, and in different ways, right? Because not everybody's an actor. I've had some people
Mm,
who are educators. They were, and
mm,
then they were like, no, girl, I pivoted right into education, but becoming more enlightened educators, right? And talking to their students and helping their students understand, hey, you got to approach this with, with like, 10 toes down for yourself and understanding that this is an ecosystem, this is an
mhm,
industry, and you have to be a fulfilled human, right? So looking at it that way of like, I've had to like expand myself as an educator to really enforce into these students that I have that like, okay, yes, I'm teaching you the art form. However, there's a whole business you're going to have to go into that will chew you up and spit you out if you allow it, right?
mhm,
And then people who are like have conducted orchestras and did like all different types of artists. But I do believe that everyone is at a point or was at a point, is at a point, maybe in a new point since I interviewed them, that it's like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to figure out this for myself. And so this is the nugget that I have. So this is what I'm going to share. Right. And it doesn't mean that
mhm,
everything is figured out because that's impossible for everything to be figured out. But you know what? I have this little portion figured out, right? Like this little thing. So that's what I'm going to give. So yeah, I do believe that I'm going to say 99% of the guests that I've had have been enlightened artists and are on this
yeah,
path of like, well, let me figure out what works for me, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, like, and I will ask you objectively. 'Cause I think you are a really good read on people, and you've been listening to this, to whatever rabbit holes I've opened and what doors
mhm,
I've opened in my brain. What do you think is like the nugget of this conversation this evening
mhm,
that you feel
mhm.
like is my learning that in turn I am offering your audience?
Yes. You turning the question on me because I was just about to ask you what's your nugget of wisdom.
Ayana!
Yeah, y'all, Lori done turned the podcast on me.
Yep. That's what I do to everyone. That's what I do to everyone. They call me Loper Tishfried for,
Yes.
I'm ready.
I think, I would say the nugget of this conversation, the first thing that's coming up is the trust aspect of like to trust your own gut, right? Because my gut and your gut are going to say two different things because we're living two different lives. And
Mhm.
so I think like sitting in that trust wholeheartedly. And that is hard because we're humans, because our egos kick in, because our what
Yes.
ifs kick in, because our perceived control kicks in. We're not in control. God's in control. The universe is in control. Whatever people believe. I thoroughly believe that God and the universe are in control. But
Yeah.
the perceived control that we have is like, no, 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 baby. You don't you control your thoughts, you control the words that come out of your mouth, and you control your boundaries. That is all you control. That is
Mhm.
it. And so to sit in the trust, I think, is the first nugget of this conversation, right? To sit in it. And it's a scary place,
Mhm.
but to allow yourself the gift of sitting in that trust, because then that opens doors, which I think is the next nugget. It opens doors you never thought would have opened, but also not to close doors that you think should be closed. Because sometimes
Mm.
they don't need to be closed. You just need to leave them open. Leave them open, and what's going to come through the door is going to come through the door. But it's not your job to close it because it wasn't your job to open it in the first place.
Hmm.
Right?
That's big. That's big. And oh my gosh, I think that hearing you recap that is something that I will need to listen to like a week from now, a month from now, all of that. And the thing is, like, what I'm sure you feel this way in the discomfort of sitting in your trust.
Mm-hmm.
It can feel like, for me, it feels lazy.
Mm-hmm.
You ever feel
Yep.
that too?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I will say to that, that is our conditioning in this society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is part of our conditioning in this society.
Yeah.
Because where you are right now in your life, you could not have gotten there if you were truly lazy. You
Exactly.
could not have gotten there.
And so it's just kind of trusting it. Like, I always ask myself, and I ask many people whenever I interview folks, I ask, what energizes you these
Mhm.
days?
Mhm.
Not what do you do? Da, da, da.
Yeah.
What energizes
Energize.
you?
Mhm.
Because your body does not lie.
It doesn't.
If my energy is low today, it's for a reason. It almost feels like in the journey, you're just in traffic. And I'm the kind of person that, like, if I'm in traffic, I will drive 5 extra miles just to be moving along my route. Get off that exit and take these local routes and just feel like I'm moving.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
sometimes you just got to be in traffic.
Yeah. Mm. Ooh, say it again for the people in the overflow
Sometimes
section.
you just got to be in traffic, Ayana.
Mm. 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 Yes. Yes, because 'cause we're trying to get through the traffic, but, we
Listen,
have
I
to
did
sit
not
in it.
grow up in church, but like I
Mhm.
feel like that is like the church moment.
Yes,
Like
that's
full band is coming in.
the organ came in.
Yeah,
Ding, ding,
yeah.
ding. Yeah. Very much so, very much so, because that's uncomfortable, right? Like, we wanted to keep moving and keep going, but also realizing that sitting still and trusting, you are moving forward.
Yeah.
You are, right? Like, wh what like, I know for some people, it's just like, that math ain't mathing, but it really
Mhm.
is. To sit, to trust, to listen, to be in tune, to get the message, to see the opportunity is moving forward. Because if you don't trust, you're not going to get the message to go in that direction.
Yep.
So you have to sit in traffic so the GPS can reroute, hey, actually go up here and make a left. But if you weren't sitting in traffic to then listen to the GPS, you were going to go straight instead of making a left.
Just gotta sit and listen.
Got to sit and listen. And it's hard. Y'all, we're acknowledging that it's hard. Nobody's saying that it's easy, but it's one of those things that you like got to do it. You got to
It's
do
so
it.
uncomfortable.
Mhm. Oh, it is.
I I even had like a friend once told me, the image of like sometimes you're just going through a cloud.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's it. But know that like the cloud will have an end.
Right. Right. The cloud will have an end. Like when you're flying on a plane. We definitely fly through the clouds. We come up on the other side. Oh, and there's another cloud and we're going to pass right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, what a blessing.
Yes.
Ayana, I'm
Oh,
so glad that you're doing this podcast. I almost want to rebrand it and call it The Enlightened Artist,
the
unless it's taken.
ooh. Is I don't know if that's taken. Lord, I may have to do something. We may have to do because it's been 6 seasons of the Artist Pivot. There could be a renaming, or there could be even like a subsection of
Yeah.
the Artist Pivot, the Enlightened
But I do
Artist.
like the artist pivot because pivot is a scary word for a lot of people.
It is. It is. It is. Yeah, it is very scary, and you're just like, but it's necessary, right? It's
Yeah.
necessary for your growth, for your evolution, for you just as a person, right? Like
Yeah.
I know it's the artistry we're talking about, but as a person, you have to pivot because that's how you grow, right? That's how you become the person you were born to be, what you were meant to be, right? And so it's like, yeah, this is really scary. And I know society has told me that like pivoting is bad and like changing. And it's like, nah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, if you don't pivot, you don't get where you're going.
No.
You don't get where you're going.
No.
Yeah.
But also, I think like people also don't understand where they're meant to go either.
Ooh, now that. And then that ties right back into trusting and listening. You have to. So if you don't know where you're going, sit and listen. Try to get the next step, right? The next piece of the blueprint. Because again, we can't see the staircase, right? We
Yeah.
don't. But if you're like, okay, what's the first step? I just need to see the first step. Okay, then let me see the next one, right? But that's sitting and listening. That's trusting that the staircase will eventually appear to you. That's
Mm-hmm.
going, okay, I think I'm going in this direction, right? But I can't see everything around me, but I'll just keep putting one foot in front of the other. But again, that's trusting. That's asking, okay, is this for me? That's being in tune with your body. Because like you said, your body will tell you yay or nay. It will absolutely be like, nope, we're not doing that.
Yep.
And sometimes we ignore it and sometimes we follow it. But I think it's training ourselves to be like, I'm going to sit and listen. And I'm also going to listen to my body. And I'm also, right? Like that's part of the human experience.
It's adulting though. Like I think that's the thing.
Adulting is the worst. Adulthood is the worst hood ever.
But
It's
it's
the
like
worst.
it's no mistake though. There's no mistakes, and I think that's like a big part of like the actor's journey is sometimes we just become adults.
Yeah. 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 We just become adults. You're absolutely right.
It's like think about who you were in like your early 20s. The thought of I think I remember like those like children's tours where you're like in a van
Uh-huh.
for hours and you like share a hotel room with someone that
Mm-hmm.
you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine being like what in your at this age now and someone was like, "Do you want to do that?"
Absolutely not. And I also would tell that 20-year-old to absolutely not do that. I don't care if you need credits on your resume. You are worth more than that. Don't do that. Do not do that.
How do we like convince ourselves that we weren't worth that?
On again, I think it goes back to the free labor that capitalism likes
Yeah.
to put on a like no, you need to pay the person that like internships you need to pay the person for that. You need to I gotta get experience. That whole like, I gotta okay,
Yeah.
but you should pay the person for that. Right? Like pay them.
The thing that was the most eye-opening, I remember playing a board game once, um, with like this like an acquaintance. She was like an
Mhm.
engineer, six
Mhm.
figures,
Mhm.
and one of the questions was like, "What is something that you wish you had?"
Mhm.
And she said, "Talent."
Wow.
And that was like the most mind-blowing thing of like, you make six figures, you've got a great job, you're essentially set for life in this position. You keep climbing within this company. She works for the government. I'm like, you're in a house renting to own, and you want talent.
Right.
And those are the moments where I'm like, there is monetary currency, and there is artistic currency,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's twofold in that like when you accept the artistic currency that you're about to gain,
Mhm.
like even with my show that I did, I was like, great. I'll either break even or be at a loss for producing this. I want to make sure that everyone gets paid a
Mhm. Yep.
decent amount
Yeah.
because I'm going to gain artistic currency from that. Great.
Yeah.
Um, when you accept that, it's we're really expensive people. I think that's it. And I tell
Yeah.
folks who are in the industry who are just like, you can feel when their value is lessened all the time
Mhm.
because you're
Mhm.
conditioned to be so. I tell
Mhm.
many of my friends, you're expensive. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even being told that
You're
you're
expensive.
really expensive.
Oh, I am. I am.
I'm expensive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everyone should be expensive.
Yes. Yes, they
It's
should.
like how do we get like a Felicia Rashad? Like Felicia
Right.
Rashad would just come on the camera and it's just like you're regal.
Yes. Yes.
You're the closest to a goddess that we will see.
Mm-hmm.
You're expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And like I don't know what dollar amount could ever afford her.
Right. Like,
How
mm-hmm.
do you quantify
Right.
that?
Right. Right.
But the
I mean, you
reality is
don't.
that like I think for her, she carried herself in a way that she was just like, I'm rich because I
Mm-hmm.
have my art and I have myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll take a
Oh,
lesson from Felicia.
that's beautiful. That's
Also,
beautiful.
how like is there even a way to like watch the Cosby Show?
I, I don't know. I actually don't know.
I know it's a controversial topic, but like I just
I'd watch
miss
it just for
watching
her. Right.
yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know that's a very good question. I have to Google that. I'm not sure if you can.
Yeah.
It may or may not be streaming. But I get exactly what you're saying. I'm rich because I have my art. I have
Yeah.
who I am. I know that I am expensive and I'm going to act as such.
Like, do we have any like modern day Felicia Rashads? Like, who do you think of as like someone that's like, ooh,
Oh, well, okay. The first person that's coming to mind for me, but she may be in the same pool, is Viola Davis.
mm-hmm.
But she may be in the same. Mm,
I think of like, but they're not actors, but I think of Michelle Obama and
oh
Oprah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes, they are very much so. Very much so.
But it's a little, I think Angela Bassett.
Oh,
Why did
absolutely.
you say, I just said Bassett. I was like, Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett. Yes.
She's absolutely expensive, but she's also of that generation.
Right. She's right. Right. We're still in that generation, aren't we? Yes. Okay. Wait. What about?
But I don't know what younger people. I'm like, the thing is, like, I feel like that generation, there was such a harsh suppression of Black women that you had to be that regal
Mm,
response to it. Whereas
yeah.
now, it's like, who do we have? Like Lupita?
Mm-hmm. Which
But
she is, but
Lupita,
it's a different.
she's
It's a different.
different.
It's different. Yeah. I get
And you
exactly
can't
what
blame it
you're
on age.
saying.
You can't blame it on age
No.
because, like, Felicia's audition tape for the Cosby Show is just like you were this for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think you might have hit the nail on the head of like it's their response to when they were growing up and the suppression and the like they had to respond that way, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to figure out, wait a minute, I know that I'm worthy and I'm going to
Yeah,
walk through the world as such.
yeah.
Period.
Listen, man, I'll tell you my secret is that like I feel like my last theater projects I've done, people will look at me and think that I have several Broadway shows under my belt, but I do
Mhm.
not.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they like think that I'm someone, but I'm not.
Mhm. Well, you are someone, but
Yes, but
I get
not
I get what you're
defined.
saying. I get what you're saying. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, but it's like to me, theater right now feels like an ex-boyfriend that I would just kind of grew out of. Like I
Uh-huh.
go to galas now and like I'll I got a fly dress on and I'm carrying myself with agency and it's like the weirdest thing to like be around all of the legends that I grew up with.
Mhm.
And there's this one woman who I had no idea who she was. This was a
Mhm.
couple weeks ago. I went to a gala and she was like, I just want to let you know that like you are a beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
And you really need to own that.
Mm.
Like, I've seen you here throughout the night, and I don't
Yeah.
know who you are, but like, there's something so regal about you. And like, you really just like need to own that. And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, because we know who we are in sweatpants
Yeah. Yeah.
and no makeup,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. We
but that's a
do.
responsibility to show up for ourselves.
Yeah. It is. It
And you can
is.
also be a beautiful regal woman without makeup and in your sweatpants too.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's all, like you said, showing up for yourself.
Like, have you owned your beauty as a woman?
I think I've started
Or,
to. Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Most definitely. In like my own way, right? Of like, no, you're gorgeous. And I need you to own that, not be ashamed of it. And I also think it's me owning it doesn't put anybody else down.
Yeah.
Me owning it doesn't shame anybody else. It's just me owning it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's also like a different definition of beauty too,
Mm-hmm.
where like there it's not like the physical things, it's just what you emanate and radiate.
Yeah.
Like, you're a beautiful woman. Like,
Yes.
I will say that.
Thank you.
You are a beautiful woman, but
Mm-hmm.
it also takes my inner works to be like, we can both be beautiful women talking to each other.
Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. But it's all internal work, right? It really is, in the end, all internal work.
Yeah.
Like, oh, again, I can show up for myself. I can show up for myself because I've done the inner work. And so, yeah, now I can say to someone, now I can say to Lori, you are a beautiful woman. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't suppress me. It actually uplifts me at the same time. Because it's like, oh yeah, I recognize that. Because I also recognize
Yeah.
it in myself.
Yeah. But that's the gift of being an artist, is like, that is the most expensive thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the crux of all of this, is like, the irony is we'll be in situations where we're like offensively underpaid,
Mm-hmm.
but because we have this muscle memory of self-awareness, we then do all this inner work and then create such tremendous value that like people can't afford us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's why I pivoted into other industries. So I'm just like,
Because you can't afford me.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And right. And it's being okay with that, right? Because
it is.
knowing,
It's so weird. It's so weird because just like, even, my fiance who works on all these projects, they're like, why don't you ever have Lori on with you? And he's the one who's just like, no, she's too good for this.
mm-hmm.
I'm just like, it's really hard to accept it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not wrong.
But
I'm like, I don't want to be in a rehearsal room for 12 hours.
exactly. It's not wrong. It's just hard to accept that. It's just
Yes.
hard to accept it, right? You're like, it's that little bit of your ego, but like, okay, but I could do it. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you're actually better than that. You're like,
Yes.
I guess I am, aren't I? So I'm gonna tell my ego to go sit in the corner. Mm-hmm.
Listen, just listen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all we have to do is listen.
It's just listen. It's just listen. Y'all,
Anyway,
all we have to
Anna,
do is just listen. Lori, thank you so much for
what a gift.
sharing and coming on.
This was
What a
such a gift.
gift. Yes. Yes, it was.
You feel ready for the self-tape?
I'm very ready for the self-tape.
Good.
I am thoroughly ready for this self-tape.
Good.
Yes.
I'm glad.
Yes, I am. So I want to wrap up. Well, we already did our nugget of wisdom, y'all. Which was trust, right?
Yeah.
And don't close doors that aren't meant to be closed.
Yeah.
And don't try to force doors open that aren't supposed to be open in the first place.
Yeah. And sometimes you also need to be sitting in traffic. Just put on a good song and get through.
Come on, sit in the traffic, y'all. Sit in the traffic. And also show up for yourself, right? Be regal, show up for yourself, know your worth.
Yep. You're expensive.
You're expensive. You're expensive. And so, Lori, where can the people find you out here on the interwebs?
Sure. So my IG, Lori Tishfield, not super creative, LORITISHFIELD. And also it's like I staff all the time. Check out my website, naturaltalent.co. You can always even just submit your resume, headshot, and be like, listen to you on this podcast. I live in Wyoming, whatever. Just keep me on your file. Like I'm always building my file, and I always just want to find good people.
Yeah.
So I trust that if you're listening to Ayana's podcast, you're good people.
Yeah.
So those are the main ways to find me.
Perfect. All right, y'all. All of that will go in the show notes, so it's easily clickable. And then I must say to you that it always makes me, okay. I celebrate you, I uplift you, and I acknowledge you.
Thank you. That means so much, being in this cave of isolation, of remote working. And that means so much, Ayana. Thank you. And I feel that from you every second of this. You have such a gift in this podcast, and I'm so excited to see you blossom and more and more and more. And voiceover is more and more and more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for joining me. Thank you. This podcast is produced by Ayana Major Bay. Editor is Kieran Niement. Theme song lyrics written by Ayana Major Bay and Melissa Victor, with performance by Ayana Major Bay. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.